How you guys all doing? Tree Fort, day 2. I don't know if you guys were at main stage yesterday, but wow, that was amazing. And it's our first time in a park. So if you haven't made it there yet and you have a 5-day wristband, it's really cool. It's really, really cool. I'm Sean Wakely. I'm the director of Hackfort. Thank you guys so much for coming out this morning, especially if you've been out late. I know usually in the morning, everyone's a little slow. I'm one of those people. I haven't had enough coffee yet. But anyways, thank you so much for coming. I'm super, super, super excited to have the guys from Intricon here. They're also a sponsor of Treefort. They've been so great to us. And yeah, and there will be Q&A. We will be passing around a microphone afterwards, though, because this is being recorded. So we want to make sure we cover that. But yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Raymond and Marcus.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah. Oh, wait. Let me get this. Yeah, you want to use this? We're going to say a lot of things between the two of each other, so maybe we should throw this in. Now I need to stand here like the president. I guess. Does this come through? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, so welcome everybody. We're at this session. There's another session going on as well at the same time, so if you're in the wrong one, you can still move. So we're talking here about like the hype of virtual reality that happened a couple of times, and then the disappointment, and then it got back again. And we've lived that for over 10 years, and we're trying to give you some more of that perspective here. Okay? Yeah, so who are we? You see some of our older stuff playing here as well, what we do. But we are Intricon. That's Marco.
Hi, Marco.
We're in business for like 20 years. We have offices in Europe, Latin America, and the US. And our customers are companies like Samsung, HP, Stratasys, which you see down here. That's the leading 3D print company in the world. Also G&D, a currency technology company. Anybody familiar with that? No hands? Anybody has an iPhone? It's inside. So the eSIM that's in your iPhone, that's what they make, and a lot more. So these type of customers we have, so it's truly enterprise what we do. So we're not doing consumer stuff, we don't do games, that type of thing. Okay. Also what we do is highly realistic and detailed experiences, like you can see here. What I truly like is that we can show stuff that you cannot see in real life. Like you see here, you can stick your head inside of products we built in VR. These are basically digital twins. Okay, so that's how we're able to train people, to inform, to educate. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. Introduction.
Yeah, all our points are going to be more about this kind of today's crew level, and that's going to be reflected on the type of software or the type of roles, etc. So that's where we're framing this presentation too. So let's.
Cool. So what we'll cover today is the state of the industry, like where are we now, how did we get there, the adoption challenges we found along the way of that, the disappointment, and how we dealt with it, what's changed, like there's been a lot of changes. If you saw the loop before we started, you see that VR basically started in 68. It's a long time ago. That we started. That's not when we started, not when I was born. Marco neither. But yeah, Marco has up front some of those devices as well that we work with. Early Oculus, the first Oculus we have, those type of things, right?
And so let me there. It's not just to say, hey, this is the cool headset. No, we have from the very early ones and everything. But here the most important thing is the form factor. If any one of you guys later or here are at the booth, they want to give it a try. Because just imagine 45 minutes, 1 hour wearing one of those. So that's why form factor is a very important element.
Yeah, good one. So we've worked with those, and that was not easy, right? And but probably when you saw the first ads about that, it was all cool, right? It was like, wow, this is a new world, it's exciting, right? So a lot of false expectations were there. And yeah, we've seen those as well, and we saw that, hey, this is not realistic. So we worked on what can we do, right? How can we make this realistic? How can we develop good applications for this that are scalable, right? And that bring some kind of value, return on investment, or who knows what. So we look at what's changed, where are the opportunities as we see them, and why we are excited after all those years and we're still there, right? As a company, that's not the only thing we do. It's one of the things we do. We originated out of the training world, and good old classroom training like this is what we did. And then we went to video, web-based, and live stream, and the whole thing, right? And then we got into this. We started really using the products paid, let's say, that people paid us to do it, around 10 years ago with the Google Class. That's when we started really using the products and developing content for it. Okay, and then we have some Q&A at the end. All right, I talked enough for now, Marco, you can go.
So here is about everyone have here seen or something about AR, VR, right? And we're going to call it XR, just for the sake of, it means everything or any kind of reality. So when you see that, and whoever works in graphics and whoever tries to sell a product, this is super cool. And you're expecting to put the headset and you're expecting to see avatar kind of, and it's not really. So from there, it's everything has changed. Now we are demanding consumers. We are demanding a more smaller device, amazing battery life, not an iPhone kind of thing. They have an iPhone. So all of those kind of elements are, just imagine, it's this thick, is your glasses, or it's going to be your headsets or whatever. So it's kind of difficult to really be realistic at this point. In terms of, for consumer level, what are your expectations? Do you see that the Sony PlayStation came out with the VR? Do you see the news? Do you see the reviews? Amazing? Crappy. So it's like all of the spectrum, the same product at the same time. So it is funny. So all of that brought the clients. So we focus on enterprise. So just imagine that hype on the enterprise level is like, oh, we can do that, right? Not really. Maybe. Kind of. Yes. So it goes in all of that kind of stuff. So here is where we always find this useful, is the hype cycle. I'm sure that all of you have seen this kind of graphic. We are leaving another one with AI and all of this thing. There will be another topic. So let's talk about the hype cycle.
Well, AI is part of VR now as well, of course.
That's why I'm saying. Yep.
It's one of the things we are excited about. Well, it's not close. Yeah, so false expectations and the hype cycle, that goes together, right? Like every technology, every new innovation goes through this hype cycle. And we see that with VR, AR, MR, XR. I'm using those throughout, basically, in a mixed way. But yeah, that started with, of course, early adapters, enthusiasts that are buying this and buying into it, created a lot of attention. High-profile demos were created, and those were basically often fake demos, right? But people, yeah, saw that, and it was like, this is what it is, right? And yeah, a lot of growth there, a lot of expectations, and people started using it, and were investing in it. But yeah, there was also some doubt at some point, because what's the next step, right? How do you make money here? How do you commercialize this? And that didn't really happen, right? There was cool stuff, but it wasn't as cool as was promised, right? Those companies created really false expectations. So it went down, right? Got into this dip. And
here, let me mention something about this. When this guy came out, it's the DK2, the Oculus. I would call nerds, but we call them now enthusiastic people. Got it, install it, plug and play, not plug and play. Didn't work. So that's where we were, in that kind of a stage.
Yeah, so that was at that time. So the Oculus DK2 was like 2010, right? Something like that. So you see a couple of these hype cycles, right? If you look at the current day, we see this with, for example, the Meta Quest 2, right? This is the most sold headset in the world. Honestly, this headset is great, I think. Like the whole install, the setup, it's amazing, right? It's very easy. So it was the #1 Christmas present and those type of things, right? Millions of devices. People have this, but now what's the next step, right? They expect more games, more updates, new apps. kind of slow, right? So that's the biggest challenge that Meta has, is new content. So people are disappointed. For us, we are a little bit out of this phase already because our customers, we've developed real applications for them, real value. So we are up that slope already a little bit, which is basically now the time of Hackford, right? You see that customers are accepting this as a solution. They see the value. They can transfer this to dollar numbers, basically, right? So that was good for us.
And the requests are more grounded now. It's like, yeah, I have seen the commercials and you don't believe them exactly, but can we do this other thing? So that's where we are.
Yeah. Now I have to say about Meta, everybody's always picking on them, right? I'm not a Facebook guy, but I think they also open up the way for VR and AR. They really get all the punches, right? And they create demand. They generate interest. They sell their headsets below cost, basically, right? So that is something noteworthy as well, I think. And of course, we know that in a couple of years, Apple is there. And they say, hey, wow, look at this. We've done it the real way. We have our stores ready, we have this ready, and they run away with it, right? So in the end, you'll have the Googles and the Apples, etc. again, right? That will happen, for sure. But yeah, we've gone up this slope already with our clients. We have several clients that we work with constantly, basically, and new projects. And it's expanding as well in different areas of XR. So we can see that it's now an accepted solution there. And that basically brings you then at some point to the plateau where it's like, yeah, this is accepted. What's the next big thing, right? So, yeah, that sounds all pretty easy. But the road to that wasn't that easy for us either, right? We really lived that, right? We bumped our nose, we made the mistakes, and we learned from it. And we had non-working demos because of various reasons, right? Amazing.
And that graphic, for example, is what was used to sell this guy, the HoloLens. And it's like, oh, you're going to be playing with another guy and I'm going to see everything here? Like that? No.
Yeah, because basically you could, they said, invite your buddy who was on the other side of the world to play a game of chess in a nice location and have some fun. And that was years ago, and it still didn't happen, right? So for consumers, it's a challenge, right? Especially if you're in that price point where you cannot invest the $2,500 or $3,000 that you need to get a good system running, complete system. Not everybody is investing that, right? So only in 2019, you could buy the Quest that's on all-in-one headset, right? For like $300, $399, those kinds of values, right? So that was when that came. But until that, yeah, it was not really in reach of consumers. They only saw the hype, they saw the false expectations there, right? And when they tried something, it was often a bad experience. They tried mostly the roller coaster, right? Or something like that. Developed in a bad way. They came out, almost puking, stuff like that. And then if you go and pitch to them like, hey, let's do VR. This is the next big thing. They're like, yeah, thanks. I've done it. You want to try this one? No, thanks. And we still see that to this day of people who have tried it years ago.
Oh, I have tried my kids here. So I got dizzy because I tried the roller coaster or a zombie game or something. I don't want to try this day. So.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the dip that we're talking about, right? Like what's next now, and consumers are a little hesitant. But on the business side that we are in, they were moving forward already for years, right? Also, if you look in the investment numbers, gaming is number one for VR, enterprise, healthcare, education, right? That's kind of the big areas where investment is taking place and adoption, because we can show real applications, cost savings, and those type of things. Yeah, to prove that point, in 2018, Walmart bought 17,000 of these headsets and distributed them to all locations to train their personnel. This was for Black Friday sale. Like, how do you handle this, right? I don't think we have Black Friday sales like this anymore. But they were trained on soft skills, basically, with these ones, right? So imagine this, just do the math, 17,000 times 249 at that moment. Likely they got a good deal, so they got some discount. But that's millions of dollars, right? And that's not the only thing. Then you need to develop content and things like that. So companies like this, they don't spend money just for the fun of it, right? They need to know that there's a return. So it shows that it was serious. Then we got the US Army. They committed to 100,000 HoloLenses in 2018, $3,500 a piece. Now we're talking about tens of millions, hundreds of millions, including the content. So this is big money. Some of you may have heard, of course, that this deal fell through this year. But it shows that companies are really looking at this in a very serious way, right? With Accenture, the big IT consulting company, right? They, during COVID, they had to onboard lots of people. And they got like 60,000 Quest 2s. Again, millions of dollars invested. Get people, train them, get their full attention, but also make them feel part of the company, right? Because most of the people were remote. And this is kind of where COVID helped VR, helped us as well at that time. But it also made a big difference here. The other thing is, of course, you should realize if you put somebody in this experience, they cannot escape, right? They are there. You have their full attention. So that's nice as well, right? To have that feature. Because if you're just talking to them, I mean, they
human is in a good way.
No.
Here is what we were talking about. For example, and something to point out, if you have seen or used the headsets, these guys need the computer, need the cable. This guy needs an amazing old phone, so it can continue working. These guys are standalone. They don't need the computers. They don't need cables. In that time, we were doing these demos, and we had a computer because the requirement of the client was, can we use the hands? I don't want to use the controllers. How do you do that? Okay, but the headset doesn't have anything built in. So we stick, literally, a sensor. That's what you see here. Who is now the CEO of HP, how he was trying with the cable, and there was that one. The motion controller. So we ditched, in that 2017, we were ditching the controllers. You were interacting with the experience. And this was a marketing-oriented content. Because in the nice ways, nice words that Raymond said, we have the captive attention of the user. We were given a technical marketing speech about how the device works. They have your full attention. So in this case, look at the hand over here. We're moving around because the person, the user, is moving around. So you have to handle the cable, right? So in this case, oh, actually, yeah, you can go. That is the hand. Go to the next one, please. And all of this is an experience rollout, right? We have the headset, we have the technology, yes, even if it's stick, okay. We are using the human force so we can handle the cable. But take a look at, could you signal the lighthouse? We have that guy, which in this case, it was in that time, the coolest part of the world was the Vibe headset. So you need to have two sensors, one on opposite sides of the room. Sounds cool, right? What about lighting changes? What about having multiple stations next to each other? Interference, problems with the sensors, a lot of praying and crossing fingers that it works, that it is the real situation. For when we were talking with more clients and everything, this brings another problem. Who of you have gone to expos as presenter with booths, with people? You need to have someone who set up the booth, do the talk with the clients or the customers or the potential people who are there. But what if something goes wrong? You need to fix it. So those teams needed to bring someone technical with them to be able to help them because the thing was happening right there. In our case, we were lucky that we all knew how to fix it, so we need extra staff part of the team. But all of those were the challenges that were like, okay, so we forgot about the headphones. In that time was the Vive headset. Didn't have a commercial. We didn't go in that time because there was a press conference. That's where it's from. We need to get at headphones because it's noisy. So the people, we have the marketing voice talking about the nice things. I couldn't hear anything. So headset. So just imagine how now is we're talking about this. Everything is here. Not in that time.
Yeah. Also, I mean, that thing has everything built in, right? Computers, basically the whole thing. but you're not able to do every experience you develop, right? If you need, like highly detailed, realistic stuff like we do for a lot of the things, you cannot run with these fully integrated headsets, right? Yeah, so our challenge here was like rollout. We couldn't just send a kit with a PC and a headset and say, set it up and have fun, right? That didn't work. So there was a challenge, but also that meant, it was kind of bad, right? Because it meant a lot of cost. We had to travel with several people to demo something like VR, which was new, right? And people had to understand that, our clients, right? Like, wow, there's these weird costs with it, like flight costs, travel costs, etc., right? This was in Palo Alto, or the other picture actually, the press event. Like Marco said, we had all these interferences with other stuff going on. So a lot of challenges. Those things are way better now, right? Because these integrated headsets that we have now, or even connected to the PCs, they have the sensors built in, right? You can track your hands if needed. So that is nice. So that made our life a lot easier, right? But also for customers, like, oh wow, we're growing here, right? So yeah, that's fun. Also, space made a big difference. Where you saw the previous picture, there was in a very small space we had assigned with other VR setups. We had interference all the time, right? We had to drill holes to secure the sensors at certain positions, right? Like in this picture here, we had a lot more space. It made it a lot more easier, right? And we didn't need the leash to guide people because they wouldn't trip themselves.
If you visit the booth that we have, you're going to see that there are no sensors. We only have a security tape around it because it's not nice. It's not nice to punch people sometimes, so it's not. Just a reminder for you. So that's why we have a specific area or games area for the user. But you need a considerably decent space to try in real environment.
Yeah, so going through all this experience, right, that things got better basically with equipment, etc. So we kind of put a couple of lists together, like what does it take to develop XR content? And yeah, we were surprised as well when we were putting this together. There's a bunch of roles you need, job roles, right? Folks that could sometimes be combined, right? Some people could have the same skill set, etc. But yeah, you need a lot of skills there and people and different people. Of course, we didn't have that in the beginning either, right? So we were doing the all-in-one approach, you could say, right? But yeah, think about testers. Simple thing, right? But you need to test with different people, different level, those type of things, right? So yeah, there's a lot of roles there. Again, you may need multiple people for that same role, or you can sometimes combine people if you get started. Now we can get started. It's a little easier, right? But quite a bit of folks needed there. From a hardware
to hardware.
Yeah, you go.
No, it's just, of course, we need computers, right? And we have to use the headsets in some way or fashion. But what about legacy products? And if you're using a crappy computer and your client base is using crappy computers, can it run? No. You have to be very specific with the client. This is going to be this wide spectrum of use, and that's it. Or in this case, for mobile devices, this guy, I mean, this is a witness, Samsung S8. We are in what? 23? So we have to keep these guys, and it's working. Why? Because we need to know that when we are releasing something in AR, it has a widespread platform to be consumed. So in this case, computers. Now we have a lot of people working from home too. Just imagine headset, controllers, computer, workstation, and moving. So to be realistic and to be practical, that's how we are set up. We have kind of a twin office setup and a home office setup. So workstation, computer, monitors, headset, testing elements. And in this case, please pay attention, Xbox controllers. We are looking for making the things more easier for the regular user to use this thing. Because every time that I show controllers or something like that, the reaction of your customers is going to be, I'm not a gamer. Sorry for you, but you don't need it. You don't have to be a gamer to be able to do it. But that takes a little bit of people away of giving a try. Yeah, you can see that it's a lot of gear, and you're going to see why we need all of this. Again, it's based on the projects that we have developed at the experience.
Yeah, as we do true products, right? We create twins, basically, of these products. We get CAD files, right? So the technical files that we bring into the software. That we'll see the next list, of course, displayed. But also we need the true device to create the true textures and things like that. And we completely take this device apart. We have our own studio, full-blown, TV studio, I could say, with all the cameras and everything. And we use that now mostly for VR development. Of course, if you don't do this, you don't need a studio, right? But in our case, we need to. So there's a lot of stuff you need there as well. Then going to software, that's also another long list and a lot of dollars, I would say. Of course, if you're focused on VR only or AR, you can limit this. And the good news is that things are getting a little bit more cheaper and more friendly for VR development now as well. So.
And here we're just simplifying the list. I mean, the most of the applications, if you see there and you're a 3D fan, no one? 3D fan here? 3D modeler? 3D animation? No? Sorry for you guys. No, there are tools that can be used free. There are other applications that they have a paid license. We are just listing here what it helps us to do the development. You can find similar situations, similar tools for whatever your team. Remember, the first part of this group of presentation, the slides, is your team, your roles, what you have, what is the skills that you have. You probably don't need to hire new people. You just need to ask your people, what can they do?
Yep. So.
Sorry, I'm going to mention here something important for enterprises too is LMS or learning management systems. You are tracking the training of the people, right? You know the statistics and you know what is going to be failing. Okay, we need to have record of that. So now the VR experience that we're developing, they also need to interact with a learning management system that can keep track of all of that. For people who are not in training, this is going to be your analytics. This is going to be your consumption of the content inside of these virtual elements.
Nothing more?
No.
Okay. Yeah, consolidated slide of this. When we share the slides later on, you have a nice list together. And you can start going to Amazon and order this stuff. So things are changing. So what we said, like there's a lot of things needed. Things are getting easier to work with, etc. Right? So from a hardware side, the cost is going down. That's already a good thing. But also the features are expanding. Right? Resolution, field of view, those type of things, right? It's all getting better, basically. Of course, still not good enough for a lot of people, but we are very happy. So things are getting easier there. On the software side, you want to talk about that, Marco?
Yeah, just something quick. Whoever uses Adobe Suite, Adobe applications, you can create AR content now. They are already there. There's part of your software. You can start making mock-ups of your product design, your packaging, and everything, send an AR component, and the client can see how it actually looks. It's in there. It's in your license already. We can talk later about that in the booth. Cell phones. Now your cell phone, your iPhone, or some other with the Samsung, Raymond, correct me on that, they're able to 3D scan products on your mobile cell phone. Think about that.
That's the example on the right.
That's the example on the right. So it needs to go, it is a process. You need to do a lot of things and a lot of praying sometimes, but it works. That is where the changes we're seeing, that is changing dramatically the development skills, or your team can adapt very quickly, because who doesn't do these kind of things?
Yeah, so those apps, if you go to some trade show like CES in Vegas, I think we've seen like 20 of those providers or so that offer this for, I don't know, $100 a year or so, or things like that, right? You can already 3D scan this, create a model, and bring it into VR or AR, right? You may not have all the detail that you have with the original CAD files, development files, but it is a nice start, right? So it gets more accessible from a software standpoint. Also from an integration standpoint, when new software gets developed or a new LMS, for example, you see that that's developed with XR in mind. So they're already starting to put that in because they know it's needed. We currently have to deal with legacy LMS systems for our clients because they've invested years and lots of money in it. And it's kind of like a Band-Aid solution often, right? To make it work with those backend systems. So things are getting easier there. Also, client conversations. That's the biggest thing. In the past, we found a lot of skeptics, right? When we started with this, because a lot of people thought, this is going to take my job away. So they were like, don't want to help you, don't want to support you. So we had to go around people, etc., right? Some of these same people are getting actually cheerleaders right now for our stuff, right? So you see that as well. So the client conversations get a lot easier. They know what it is, they know what it takes, they know the value, and they are also better educated because they look into their industry literature or whatever they get their information from, and they see that their competition is doing this. So if you don't do it, you have to explain something, right? So that's going good as well. Now, where are the opportunities? So first, the statement is launch an XR project with purpose. And with that, I mean goals. The first thing I always ask to our clients is, what's your goal with this? Do you have data? How can we measure this? Because again, 10 years ago, we learned it the hard way. We were doing this in marketing. Marketing was used to weigh other expenses, right? They didn't have a problem with spending money on print or on a commercial. There was a certain amount of money that said, okay, well, that goes there. But now it went to VR. And that was weird, right? So how are you going to measure that? How are you going to measure the impact? I mean, we didn't have a good story at that time. Also, our clients didn't have a good story. So that created a problem, right? So now we are always there. We say, what's your goal? What's the data we can work with so that we can calculate your ROI, right? Because we need to show cost savings or profits or whatever, right? Because developing VR is not cheap, as you've seen.
And here, for example, in one of the presentations a few weeks ago, you have to create memorable experiences for your customers. They have to remember who we're with, what they experienced, what was the product, and everything else. So what if you have an immersive reality to show that? But you have to know how to measure it. It was successful. But how do you measure the wow factor? I don't know. It's like we are like, for example, one of the projects that we did on the technical side for the training, it was being used for other channel partners to sell the devices. We were like, okay, we want to know more. What happened there? They were saying and making the point, the company is investing in this kind of content for our technicians. The competition are not doing anything like this. So, and they start using that for sales. We're like, okay, that's good.
Yeah, so to your point, we see the reach expanding, right, for this technology. And we'll have another slide on that where it basically brings you to like converting VR sometimes to 2D, like a desktop mode, to make it more accessible to more people. Because not everybody needs that detail, not everybody needs to be in VR, but it can still, that same content can be leveraged in different ways. That's a big opportunity for us in this case. So yeah, real cost savings. We did a calculation with one of our bigger clients on cost savings. This is a very conservative number. But yeah, we've seen 40% lower cost for training people in VR versus in person. Now, we're talking here about lots of money, right? Because there's lots of training going on, lots of traveling, those type of things, right? And of course, I'm always a fan of in-person as well. It's nothing better than that. But there's also a lot of benefits to VR, right? You can repeat stuff. You can have that muscle memory. You have the full attention. And you can break stuff. If you do that in real life with expensive products that are like $25,000 or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need to repair, you need to pay for the parts, you have a delay, those type of things, right? So that's where, we see big cost savings there. The biggest cost savings are not initially when you have your initial VR development cost, because the costs are high. Your returns are also good. But after that, your one-off training, you want to train another 20 people. Doing that's where really the cost savings kick in. So that's nice as well. And related to this, of course, environmental impact. No travel needed, no energy use in classrooms, no waste, those type of things. So if your customers have these environmental impact goals, again, that's why I'm saying ask about those goals. This is another good thing to bring up. All right. On the product development side, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. For example, what happens if you need a proof of concept and you have to build that physical unit? Multiply for 100. Multiply for, what was the number? $25,000 each one of the units. That's a lot of money. So what happens if 50% of that number of units are in virtual reality? You still have to have the physical thing. That is not taking that away. That is not true. I mean, you have to understand that virtual is virtual. There is nothing like the physical things in some cases. In other cases, you have to evaluate the need. And what happens if that can be replaced with this? Then you have a little bit of margin, right? Because that can be used specifically for the virtual development. Just think about your design of the posters or signs that you have to do. You need to make tests. You can show them something virtual, and the client signs off on how it's going to look. Just think about that evaluation. You know your market better. And AR applications. This is a proof of concept we did for Albertsons. Nothing has to be realistic. It can be. We went for the on purpose cartoony kind of example. You aim your camera to the can, and there are some little fun characters dancing. That's it. And that was in the store.
Well, I mean, this was, of course, connected to their social media campaign and things like that, right? So for them, it has value. If you would use it within their app, you get a discount, a coupon, digital coupon. So you get something out of it, and they try to make you post this on Instagram, of course. So, yeah, that was a pretty quick proof of concept we did for Albertsons in this case. But yeah, future product development is going to be a big thing. So basically creating the digital twin of that future product. That are sometimes prototypes are expensive to develop and to produce, and sometimes a customer needs hundreds of those. So that's where the cost savings can easily pay for the VR development, and you have something left. So that's pretty interesting. So metaverse, of course, we can spend another session about that. At this moment, metaverse is not really there, right? It's just a bunch of virtual worlds that live together, not even live together. But yeah. Does everybody know what I'm talking about here? Yeah. So virtual worlds like Roblox, Fortnite, etc. There's of course real ones like Decentraland. But yeah, companies can start up their own metaverse, right? And in that metaverse, VR, AR, or other immersive applications can enhance and expand the user experience within that metaverse. Think product launch, think presentation, those type of things. You can capture two audiences, live and in the metaverse. Right? So that's where there's another opportunity. And of course, your customers will hear about this, right? So yeah, a lot of new things there. We're also talking with universities on the health side, like speech therapy, anatomy, those type of things, right? So there's a lot of things are opening up because customers, organizations, universities, they're all learning about this and they're getting more convinced, right? So what we first said, the client conversations, they are so much easier than a couple of years ago alone. So that is really exciting. So
that's why we are excited.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I go? Okay. Yeah. Well, from our experience, right, our years-long experience, basically prepared us to be ready for change because there's still a lot of change, right? There may be headsets that are going off the market. We need to make it compatible with that headset. We can do that now. There's these identifying risks. We've seen those risks. There used to be more risks than there are now. So we're able to identify those and adapt to those. And there's these opportunities that we can spot as well. Like we have developed VR, which is the big monster, let's say. But from VR, we can go to MR, we can go to AR because we have the models already. We can transfer to a desktop model where we basically say we create that VR experience, or we convert that VR experience in a desktop model, desktop version that you can run on any device. So you can run it on a regular laptop. You can run it on a Mac. You can run it on a game console or like on a Nintendo, a Switch or something like that, right? So it becomes much more mobile. And for certain audiences, that's good. So for a customer, that means a better ROI as well. So the other thing is that the market is maturing. And that helps us as well. Because what we see now is there's more players, more competitors for us. But that's good, right? Because the customers are seeing this as well. And it gives them confidence. It generates demand, etc., right? Like more hardware vendors, more software vendors, and content developers. Okay? And then, we talked about those skeptical people already that are now embracing it. And sometimes we've seen within our client base that some of those earlier skeptics, they're starting to promote this now. Like, oh, wow. I'm going to defend this, right?
And here is where you need to take a really deep insight of your team. Are they ready now that they can have the experience to create something? Why you are not starting, right? I mean, we're talking about here experience, so you have to develop that experience. Why? Again, we promised to talk about a little bit about the AI. Yesterday, one of the game engines that we use, they just released that they are going to have artificial intelligence agent inside of the engine. Just think about that. So for this is where all of the tools that we can have a training unit that you can be asking questions, not only technical questions. You can make inferences. Hey, what happens if I do this? This is not a specific question in the database. It's just something that it needs to recognize what is the issue and give you an answer. So that is what we are going to.
Yeah, so AI is getting integrated. We're playing with it, kind of like a little chat GPT inside, but then isolated, right? We bring in all the knowledge we have about a certain product or experience or whatever inside, and then start using that. Yeah, so that's why we see through all those ups and downs the future very bright, right? So, and I hope you do as well, and that you've learned something about this, and that you have some questions, because Sean is here, and that means he wants to have questions.
Next slide.
I don't know if he has prizes for that.
I'll pass this around. You guys might have to share that one. Is there a question anywhere? No. We got two back here.
So I have several questions, so I'm going to try and kind of like break it down because they're all interrelated. But would you guys mind talking about kind of the overall timeline and cost of production of some of your, some of the jobs that you've done for these big companies? And also, the other side of that, I'm sure when you're talking about, the overall cost, but then, you also get these skeptics on board, with in respect to like the return on investment. Yeah. And how do you, when do you see that real click? And like, how do you, especially when a lot of us are remote, how do you share that experience? Do you do like a low res sort of mock-up situation? And yeah, how do you get them to be like, oh yes, this clearly makes sense?
Okay.
It's a long answer.
It's a good one. The typical answer you get is it depends, but I will not do that to you. So what you're asking is like, you're in the sales process basically, right? Yeah. Yeah. So when you're already have sold this, right, and done this before, it becomes a little easier. But yeah, we get that question, like, what does it cost? And then, yeah, you kind of have to say, it depends, right? Like, what do you want to do? What are your goals, etc., right? Developing a proof of concept just to convince them is not cheap, right? So you need to be really sure that there's an opportunity. So that is a challenge, I have to say. So yeah, you really need to have that trusted relationship already almost, right, to get there, right? And the right information to get that going. Now, to your first question, if you look at the ideal world, right? Like if a customer comes to us and they say, could you develop this product within VR, completely realistic? We say, okay, we can do that. What can you provide to us, right? So if they can provide the technical files, the CAD files, right? And all the information around it, documentation, all that type of stuff, then our life is a lot easier. Now, in real life, that's not the case. We just talked about that, right? Some people say, well, I don't give this away. This is confidential information. Sometimes we need to get files from providers, right? Out of Japan or Korea. Well, you have to go through, we went through one time through a year-long process of getting access to files, right? So that's a challenge. But if they would give that to us, then, we've brought down the timeline to like 3 months of producing something. Of course, it really depends on how big the product or the project is, right? And then, we've developed, of course, designed already the ROI calculation, because otherwise you will not get that money. But yeah, if that situation is ideal, we can give them a price. If it's not ideal, we go hourly.
And let me add to this here. We always suggest to go and develop this roadmap and make sure that you understand, the client understands where you're going to stop, because the most common mistake is to try to do the whole product or the whole thing for the proof of concept is too much. And if you don't have an iteration part where you are kind of, hey, is this working? Is this going into the right direction? Yes, no, kind of. Yes, perfect. Then we go full ahead. In our case, we always ask on the field, hey, your product is doing this, this, and this. What are the number of things that is happening? Then we aim to that solution inside of the VR. So you need to take what is the client providing you to have a reference? Because we always say, maybe a lot of money, but this is not expensive.
So it's kind of like iterative world building. You're like, okay, we broke it down into 5 steps, but here's step 1. And then, mind blown. They're like, okay, sign me up kind of thing.
We are consulting with a university back in other areas. And we always suggest, you want to see how the product looks, you show them the product. Don't worry about the internal elements, just the box. And it's an AR, perfect. And from there, they're going to start making decisions.
Hey guys, I was just curious. I didn't really see anything on the slides around like haptics. So like using like gloves or the haptic suit to basically give feedback to the body, saying that, even if you don't have the controller, if you're just using your hands, that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I went too far or whatever. Like, is that part? Are you seeing more of that? And what's the future of that?
It doesn't look good yet. There are some gloves that can give you also a feeling of hot, cold, pressure. That is best. Usually you're going to see that in the gaming development. But the issue, or again, our solution is for the enterprise and what makes sense to distribute 100 units, 10 units, 20 units, or something like that. The gloves that give you a decent kind of thing, it looks like a alien thing with a bunch of cables, $3,500 per unit. You're like, okay, wait, if I need 10, we're not in good shape. So it is promising. It is going, and see, as we saw and try different gloves, it's super cool. I'm the geek guy, so he needs to keep me grounded, right? So yeah, no, this doesn't work. Why? Because, no, he's a geek, but it's business oriented, right? So we need to think about what is going to happen in a broad group. Is looking good, depends on what you're going to do.
Yeah. Real quick, the other challenge is making it work together, right? And then really the issue we saw is, yeah, we get it working. Works fine for us. But then we need to scale this, right? And that's where it broke all the time. So haptics are definitely on the way. And more is built in, right, into the devices. You have headsets, the biometric sensors, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I'm waiting for the contacts and, you just put them in and you're there.
Yeah. I just got some eye surgery and I got like a little sensor built in.
Oh my God. Let's give these guys a big round of applause, guys. Raymond, Marcos, thank you so much. If you guys have any more questions for them, they do have a booth out there. Go visit them. Thank you guys again so much.
Yep, you can experience it.
Thank you.
Right there.
We can geek out.
Demos where you going.
Say here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, guys.